Game 2 in the books. Kind of went the way many people thought it might go, except for Bobby, who's in Brooklyn right now.
All right.
He was still expecting a win.
We didn't know it was going to be a blowout. At least one, right?
Yeah, I bet like $2,000 tonight on this one. I wanted to. I wanted to. I've never been more certain about anything as I was about this game going the way it did, and it was over so early. Like I don't even.
After the first time out, they were down 6, and I was like, I texted you guys. I was like, it's over. Even though like the score wasn't dictating that, but it was just the way the Nets were moving the ball on offense early on. They were getting down in transition. The Celtics were kind of lagging behind, and when their role players were starting to hit those shots, it was just like that's it. I mean, they're hard enough to beat just the three-headed monster, but when you start adding like Harris and Green and those guys, I mean, just that's it. There's nothing you can do. So the Celtics needed to be 125% of who they really are in order to compete, and they were like 70% of what they are.
Yeah, I remember when we this thing. John said it, and we all agreed like simultaneously about if Joe Harris catches fire against this vulnerable Celtics team, look out. And we went 10 seconds into this one before he started going off in that opening quarter.
He was the guy.
I mean, 14 points in the first quarter. That's exactly what we were talking about. That's all it takes. Someone like that goes off, and 2 of those big 3, the trio, they're going to go off as well. They're going to follow his lead. They're going to get easier shots. They're going to get easier looks to the lane. And it was just a downhill battle, or I should say a downhill slaughter from the beginning.
Yeah, it was no battle.
It wasn't a battle.
It was a battle for like 5 minutes. And it was just like, there's just no way that they're going to compete in this game.
40 first quarter points. I mean,
yeah. The defense was awful, really. I mean, and on the other side, I mean, the stat that everyone was talking about was the assist to turnover ratio, or should I say the turnover to assist ratio was like 9-1 turnovers to assist at one point. Which
hey, Jimmy, guess how many? You want to guess how many assists the Celtics had in the first half?
I looked. I think it was.
We know
4.
it was 7.
Oh, okay. I guess I looked too soon.
Guess how many they had in the first quarter?
Pathetic.
1.
Yeah.
Brooklyn was already almost in double figures already.
1. That tweet B-Rob put out, I hadn't looked at the stats at that point. There was a point in the second quarter where the Celtics had 1 assist and 9 turnovers. A 1 to 9 assist to turnover ratio is bad. I've been told.
Typically not the recipe.
My limited understanding of the game of basketball, that's bad.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get B-Rob on here to explain it a little bit further to us, and why that was such a bad stat.
I feel like that's what high school coaches, most of them go through, like, every now and then they have a game like that.
Yeah, this looked like that. This looked like one of those high school blowout games.
I'm not going to lie.
High school blowout game. Maybe like an AAU matchup.
I can tell already the people checked out of this game. And you're right, Jimmy. We should have started this show in the second or third quarter. People checked out early.
You know what, John?
Yeah.
Downfall of opening this up early for people to join is that they were like, I got everything off my chest with whoever's in this chat room right now. Like, I'm out of here. Like everyone, like those people are in bed, as they should be. And you know what? The other thing, and I think Celtics
and we should be too. And we're going to do a short show, and then we're going to hop on Locker Room, and whoever wants to yell can yell. But if, like I said, I've said this before, if they're not going to try, why do we have to try? Okay,
right?
Like I'm tired of outworking these guys.
I need to get rest for Memorial Day weekend. I can't be spending all my energy on this. But the other thing I said was, if you've been following this team,
it's been a long season.
I'm tired
of outworking these guys.
Yeah, if you've been following the team all season, you're not disappointed tonight. You're not anything. You're just numb to it. You're like, you know what? Yeah, that was a game. That was a game that I watched, and that was a game that I've seen many times this season. So like,
the text you sent, that was funny. It was dead on.
I've lost my will to. You're like, why so quiet? I was like, I'm out of stuff. I'm
I was like John. I'm like poking John with the stick, and he's just not moving.
By the way,
he's alive. He just has no will to act it.
Yeah. Okay. I just got called out. You always say short show, and an hour later you're here. You're right, Vinny. It's true.
That's why. Did you hear what I said though? That's why I was like, I think I believe you this time.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, if the room fills up and everybody's here and they want to join in, we'll keep hanging. If everybody quit, and everybody's gone and done. I don't even know where to begin here. I hate going through the same stuff over and over again. And I hate the low-hanging fruit topics because it seems like that's the ones we're picking at. But with this team, sadly, that's the story. Like, they're quitters. They quit. They don't. A team that comes out and lets the Nets do whatever they want and shoot a bunch of open threes and not get out on shooters and not attack the basket and not pass the ball and not take care of the ball is a team that freaking quit. It quit, okay? And again, I'm looking at – everyone was like, I'm looking at the stars again, man. I mean, what are we doing here?
I didn't see no stars out there tonight.
That's what I mean is you're looking at these guys and you're wondering, okay, great, fine. Tatum got poked in the eye, so he's got an excuse, but he sucked. He sucked again. Yeah. Sucked. He didn't show up, man.
Got poked in the eye. He
someone tweeted out something pretty funny to me. He goes, Tatum looked like he could almost fight it off for a second, but then he looked at the score and was just like, you know what? Maybe I should just milk this one, And he went back down.
That's so disappointing because, again, it's
he thought about it. Yeah.
You knew you probably needed a what? You needed a Tatum, 50-pointer to steal a game in this series, probably, right?
Yeah, but did you ever feel that was going to happen in Brooklyn, though? Sure. I never got that feeling, especially after we saw, the intimidation factor in game one. Look, people can say what they want about Jayson Tatum as a player and, where his effort and his mindset is at, but you can't say that when it comes to him against Durant, toe-to-toe, that he wasn't one, obviously Durant dominated him, but at the same time, you just saw Tatum sort of take a step back. It was almost as if like he was amazed by, or at least he was overwhelmed by the greatness.
Yeah, as long as they swap jerseys.
One-on-one matchup. He's never been in this spot before. At least not this Tatum. Going up against the top three, arguably the greatest scorer of all time.
Yeah, everybody trade jerseys at the end, and we're fine. So
hey, before the series started,
Durant is he's a different beast.
I didn't notice, but I have a feeling they didn't. But before the series started, we were like, oh, the players are gonna all be buddy after the games. Like, there's no way the Celtics were like buddy with anybody on the Nets.
I don't know. Let's bring it.
I didn't watch.
Let's bring in our man Bobby. Bobby Manning is in Brooklyn, and he's here to talk about Grant Williams' terrific defense on James Harden in the fourth quarter.
Oh, that came way too late.
That's what they were waiting for all game.
That was it.
They didn't try anything different in this one, huh?
Nope,
you saw a little Peyton Pritchard.
Roll it out there. Yep.
Yeah, you saw a little bit of Peyton Pritchard early, but in the end, it was only 13 minutes, so just a couple minutes more than last game. Grant you didn't see until that end that you're mentioning there. So roll the balls out, and that's it. We got a couple of players shooting out here right now, it looks like. Not Celtics, Nets, but, that was just a disaster of a performance.
What more did you need? I'm not hanging the whole thing. I'm not hanging the whole thing on Tristan, but if game one showed you one thing, and if almost every person, and I know we teased Bobby over the Grant thing, but there was a pretty wide consensus that Tristan bad, okay? Like, this isn't a Tristan series, and I'm not hanging the whole thing on him.
He had a good start to the game tonight.
He did. He had a couple bucks, but you've got the eye test.
But it's almost like the Nets want him doing a lot. They want him on those boards. They want the ball in his hands, and you see with the stats that he's putting up. It's empty numbers.
Empirical evidence. It's like it's not just the eye test, right? The defensive rating with him on the floor is astronomical, and the offensive rating is terrible for this team. They are horrible with him on the floor right now, and Brad just trotted him out there and just left him in. I mean, just same exact thing. This isn't a Tristan series. This was an opportunity to try something different. You can't beat these guys playing straight up. You got to try something, right?
Yeah, I don't understand.
I mean, rolled it out and did the same thing again.
We tease Bobby because calling Grant Williams sort of like the difference maker. I wasn't ready to go that far, but I'm shocked he didn't get it.
It's not about difference maker. It's about what can you change.
It's about different. It's about different. Yes.
Especially when you're down by 25 points. And, I don't think it should have been, it's garbage time. Let's clear the bench. And Grant should have been one of those guys. Not in this matchup, because obviously Tristan Thompson, when it comes to coming up with, offensive, just points in general, whether it's from the starting lineup or off your bench, I mean, why not just give Grant a try? Why not give him a couple of looks in there? You know, defensively, he's a bit of a scare, but at that point, I mean, you need points, don't you? I don't get it.
The one time all season, anybody wanted to just give Grant a chance, and Brad didn't.
He didn't. He didn't even think twice about it. You know.
Yeah, Tristan Thompson, 133 defensive rating now,
Again,
minus 40.
It combined both games.
Yep.
Yeah, it was 138 after game 1. Tonight it was again pretty freaking bad, but I mean it's bad, man. I mean it's so obviously bad. I can't believe they went with it again tonight. I can't believe it. Especially the game Rob played. The entire Nets team was like, wow, Rob Williams is freaking amazing. We have to watch out for Rob Williams. Hopefully we don't run into Rob Williams next game. It would be really bad if Rob Williams was there blocking all our shots again.
Yeah.
Oh, Tristan.
Yeah, Rob comes in like 5. After the Nets go on a huge run, Rob comes in.
Yeah,
the game was nearly gone by the time Rob got in for the first time.
It started a little tight, and then they went on that 18-0 run, and then it's like, okay, guys, what's going on? Oh, we're down 18.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Now, it wasn't the best game from Robbie either.
It wasn't. But
that foul at the 3-point line was a disaster. We're not seeing much offense from him. He had a couple of lobs later in the game, but it definitely feels like he's a little more limited on that end right now. And the defense wasn't great either.
Yeah. You want him playing with the starters to move the ball. Like I said, those guys like playing with him. It's a different flow with him out there, not just the gravity, but his playmaking ability. You want him out there with that team. It's so weird when he's not. It just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. I mean, it wasn't going to save you tonight, but it's just the frustration factor of going out and doing the one thing that was proven to be disastrously bad in game 1. Like you almost won game 1 because of a series of different things. The Nets shot poorly. Their big three was just playing my ball, my shot, your shot. But the one thing that obviously was bad was Tristan and the Tristan minutes in that game. And you just went right back to him, and I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. You had Tristan so bad and Rob so good. It's so easy that you think 29 out of 30 head coaches would have started Rob, and Brad's the only one who didn't and wouldn't. For real, who else?
It's close. Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah.
I mean,
it's mind blowing, and there are people who will defend it.
I don't think it's a matter of he should have absolutely started. I just think to stop the bleeding, I mean, what took you so long? Like, what were you waiting for? What was it?
I get the feeling
13-0 run wasn't enough. I didn't get that.
I get the feeling that they think, and you look at the stat sheet, 8 offensive rebounds for Thompson. I think they feel like he's a massive disadvantage out there in terms of Brooklyn's size. Like he can just go right in there and grab offensive rebounds and wreak havoc. But again, you're seeing that it's not impacting the game that much. If he grabs an offensive rebound, as he did early in this game, gets fouled going up, scores 1 point out of it, and then the Nets rush right back and hit a 3, I mean, that's a losing stretch right there. That's exactly the way the Nets want the Celtics to play.
He can do some things, and you're right. They're almost allowing it. But the Celtics overall are measurably, demonstrably worse when he's on the floor on almost every facet of the game. So stats be damned. His individual stats don't really matter there. The Celtics are clearly worse when he's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So again, just surprising. And again, yeah, right. People will defend.
It's not surprising.
Dude, he had 8 points in the first quarter. He had 8. Yeah, that's great. It's go ahead.
It's
Jimmy.
frustrating too. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I don't have anything to say. It's just not surprising. We've had this gripe all season long, and it's you might as well just finish the season the way you've been treating it all. This is the same shit. So. Finish it off, you
go down sinking.
Yeah, why change it up now? It's gotten you one of the most frustrating seasons in recent history. So why stop? Job secure. I mean, all we keep hearing about is everyone's coming back. Everyone's coming back. So who cares?
Yeah, that's true.
Thompson will be coming back too.
What's everyone worried about? Nothing, right?
All they've been told about.
Danny already said it's all good. We're rolling it back. It's nobody's fault. We're fine.
Anybody who thinks otherwise is just stupid.
Yeah, you're idiots.
Yeah. Yeah, well, consider me an idiot because I watched tonight from start to finish. So, yeah, I am a freaking idiot.
So,
that was brutal to watch.
Part of it is this, like, can you, like, fine, you can make all the excuses and rationales, which are legit, for some of the things that went wrong this year. Fine. You can point to them, and you're not wrong. But at the end of the day, are they going to be able to wash the loser stank off of them? Like you remember that you went to battle with these guys every day and you were brutally bad and you sucked and you didn't listen to your coach and you didn't do what he said and you tuned him out, and there are games you just didn't play. And those of you who did want to try witnessed everybody else not trying. Are you going to just forget all that next year?
Who's you?
No, absolutely not.
People, the players, like does that just go away?
Well, it could, because it all depends on how they feel after they're removed for a month or so. I think I think most NBA players, or maybe a couple of weeks or so, they sort of have a grasp on, okay, we agree with what's going on, or we're not quite sure if this is the right direction. And I still think that the Celtics, they're gonna go through the roster as they should. Danny and Brad, they need to go through the roster, find out which players that they think is part of the future, which ones aren't, which ones they can trade, all that. But then at the same time, you have to make sure that these guys are all on the same page. The core, obviously Tatum, Brown, Smart, Kemba, do they all believe in one another that they can actually, turn this thing around next season and just by hitting the reset button? Because let's face it, even Danny Ainge will tell you there's not going to be monster changes. So this is sort of what you're going to get, minus, a couple additions here and there, but we're not quite sure what they are. But they have to make sure that this core is the core that they trust, at least the running back for one more year. We'll say that. We'll leave it at one more year and see where this team stands.
Yeah,
they have to figure that out.
It's not like they can get rid of every single player and just completely transform the 15-man roster, especially in the core. There's going to have to be a substantial number of players coming back, and all those guys are so quality that you want them back. You want Tatum back. You want Brown back. You want, depending on how you feel about him, Kemba. I thought Kemba had a fine year. Depending on what other things they can end up doing there, you probably go back and forth on that one. And you definitely want Fournier back. That's the one I worry about when you mentioned that loser stink, John, because he's out there tonight, I thought, playing pretty well.
Auditioning for his next contract, not necessarily here.
Yeah, but calling Durant a bitch though, that'll make you want to.
No, that was an important
that'll
moment.
Make you want to get into this rivalry a bit,
What did I say at the beginning of the series? You needed somebody to do that, right?
Yes.
You waited a little long on that. I'm surprised.
It's tougher when you're down 25, but yeah.
I know. But again, as a matter of a tactic, I would have gotten aggressive, gotten physical, gotten a little tough.
It's like what Max said about Tatum. He wanted to see that from Tatum.
They had a chance.
You got, and to use his words, you got bullied. You got bullied in game one. Durant bullied you. What are you going to do now?
And you just turtled in game two. And I don't know. I hate speculating on injuries.
Oh, well, before the eye. You're saying before though.
Huh?
You're saying before the eye injury though, right?
Before the eye, he sucked. I'm not going to speculate now, but give me a break. We were joking. He looked up at the scoreboard. He's like, let's wrap it, But you're right. Durant is a little B, and you're getting friggin' bullied by him. Give me a break.
That's his idol, John. You got to remember that, though.
Assert yourself, okay? You're either a frigging a killer scorer.
It takes a while to sink in. Your idol becomes your competition. Not everyone, the first couple looks of that.
He dunked on LeBron, man. Where is this?
Yeah, but that was different. That was a transition, and he never touched the ball again. I just.
What's that?
I don't know. It's a lot of respect. I think he has a lot of respect for Durant.
Too much respect. I just saw yesterday on a podcast. What is it? $1 million worth of game.
His
on
top
Barstool
five.
Sports. He asked him who your top five. Who the top five best players in the NBA? He listed Harden and Durant, which is probably true. And who knows when it was filmed? I didn't, I don't know all that information. But come on, man. How about you don't bow down to them in the middle of the playoff series, and maybe like John said, punch them in the mouth figuratively, not literally, but do something. Show a pulse.
I don't think it's an idolizing thing.
Lead these guys.
I think he's shrinking to the challenge.
Yeah. It's an overwhelmed sort of feeling.
Exactly.
That there's just too much going against them at this series. And the tough thing is that you didn't you didn't feel that out of game one, especially early in that game. And again, I thought Tatum played okay in game one, better than a lot of people did. And then it just sunk into the second half. And then it continued into that first quarter tonight. And it's like the Celtics laid a pretty good groundwork on how to defend this team in game one. Not even pretty good. They did an unbelievable job defending them in that first half of that game. And to just let it wilt because of a couple of runs, it's the story of the season. Anytime even a hint of adversity strikes, they shut down. Yeah. They get uncharacteristically out of how they want to play the game. They start doing crazy things with the rotation, like putting Romeo in there tonight. Semi comes in later. Grant's not involved. And it's that same thing we worried about coming into the postseason, that they just didn't know who they are. They didn't know their rotations, and they didn't even have a plan coming into here. Just switch Thompson on to Harden and see how it goes. Right. You know, we're not going to fight through screens. We're not going to do anything complex. We're not going to mix it up even. Yeah. Brad was on the radio before this game saying, I used to overthink adjustments. Now I just roll with it, is kind of basically what he said to that when it came to that adjustment question. That used to be a different Brad in this spot. You remember Chicago 2017. You remember some of these series, the great changes that they made to kind of shift into these games. Because when you think of game one, when you lost that opportunity, if you go into game two and slip it all and the Nets end up running away with it, that's the series. And it's over now. I mean, there's no climbing back in this series at this point. Game one was the hope.
Someone goes, at least Bobby looks fucking good today. You do, Bobby. That's a dope look.
Bobby, you brought your A game, man.
I was going to give you props for that look. I like it. No, what was I going to say? That comment distracted me. Yeah, I mean, I just think when you compile everything that he's been going through, not having Jalen out there, I just think he's shrinking in the moment. But I don't think that means this means he's not going to be a top 5 player, or he's mentally fragile. I mean, this is supposed to build. He's supposed to build on this.
I think it does mean those things. So important
that these guys got into the playoffs. I thought that would have been the worst thing in the world. They didn't make the playoffs because win or lose, whether you get your ass kicked or not, you're going to remember that. It's going to make you a better player. So I think Tatum does, and he does bounce back eventually. But this series, he's defeated. He looks.
We won't know. We won't know the answer to that, Josue, for a couple of years though, because he's either going to respond to this after an embarrassment of a season by doing everything he needs to, and all things we've discussed, like working with teammates over the offseason, those kind of things.
Hold on. I'm not saying this isn't. I'm not.
He'll leave. Or
I'm
not
asking
eventually.
You guys to prove it. I'm just asking you to come up with a couple. Name me a player right now who's absolutely an assassin, okay, who's got that killer instinct, and early in their career turtled at the challenge.
At the challenge?
Not turtle.
Meaning, like, how many of the guys who right now you might point to immaturity, bad decision making in certain
probably
things.
Davis.
And some people who had a killer instinct, which Anthony Davis, is not a killer. Okay, he's not. He's riding.
He won the finals.
He's riding coattails. Okay, he's not. He's absolutely not.
I was thinking Paul George. Remember those years with Paul George? Like, he had those big games sometimes, but when it came down the stretch, sometimes he would get ice cold a bit.
Paul George had a horrendous playoff streak, but he hasn't proven that he's anything different yet. Paul George might still have that label of a guy who's a bit of a choker. Right. I'm asking you, of the great players who you point to and say ice water in his veins, rises to the challenge of the big moment. Did any of those guys turtle like Tatum's turtling right now, early stages of the career? So, because you can say, give him a couple of years, but I don't know going backwards that you have that. Okay, somebody put Embiid. Embiid's not bad. We'll see how he does in the playoffs here. But he also didn't fold. He was a one-man band last year, and he's kind of been off on an island.
It was 8-1 though through 2 series.
Yeah. However, there's not a lot of them. So, like, this idea that years and time are going to solve things, I might be foolish.
What about Durant?
Yeah, but you can't just overlook the 50-point, 60-point performances or a couple of those stellar performances in the bubble last year.
Guys, we're not saying good. We're saying whether they played with balls. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying guys didn't get better as players in their career. In the chat here, guys who showed no balls and then all of a sudden found them later. I don't know that there's tons of examples of that. Usually that's a thing that you have early and you're working through some other things, which is learning the game and getting more mature, but you're tough, right? The toughness is the thing that people are concerned with Tatum.
Right. Yeah.
Is someone saying Kawhi? Kawhi was a champion like his first freaking year.
Yeah, man.
I said Durant. Does Durant
he was about that life.
I mean, they were on some good teams. He was on some good teams, you know, in his early seasons with, you know, Westbrook, Harden, obviously.
He made the finals. The tricky
Green.
thing, too, is Tatum was on some really good teams through his first few years, and those teams thrive in part because of him. Now, he wasn't storming them through, although last year he was the driving force on the way to the East Finals. But you always had that thing where you could point to other guys who were involved in doing things that got them there. I do think largely he's shown that he can drive a team deep into the postseason with the right pieces around him. It's just this year was a massive failure in terms of being able to raise up pieces around him as that number one. So that's what you have to question here. And we've asked this time and time again throughout this season.
It's just softness. You don't want to see a guy quit. I'm not saying a guy.
I don't even think it's softness.
A moment is too big for him. There's a different story. I'm talking about watching him in this series say, nah, these guys are better, and kind of fold up. You don't want to see that ever. That's not a good trait.
No, you don't want to see that.
That's all I'm saying.
Are we saying that that's what's happening? Are we waiting until at least like the series?
I think he's just
out?
playing bad. I don't think he's cowering out, and who knows what happened there in the third quarter when he walked away. But he's just playing bad, and we've seen him play bad before. These are 2 bad games in a row from him. Really,
I've triggered some people in the chat. You can't say bad things about Tatum. Go screw. Honestly, give me a break. Give me a break.
You know that.
Give me a break.
Hey,
you can't criticize Tatum. Give me a break.
And everyone's sleeping on Jalen. Come on, where you been, John? That's
the other thing I'll say is that, I think the Nets are probably able, or any team is probably able to make it difficult on Tatum right now.
Yeah, they have Durant on him,
and there's just not a lot of the Celtics are like we just said, they'll let Tristan Thompson eat down low. You know what I mean? Like that's not the recipe for success. So they're almost like baiting other players, like Marcus Smart. Yeah, he went off in the third quarter, but they're like baiting other guys to try to take over.
Which is you should do. Right.
Right. Kemba Walker can, go out and score 30, but if, Tatum is limited to 15, like the Celtics aren't going to come even close to winning, but they'll just focus on limiting Tatum and they know that they can win the game.
Yeah.
So
again,
I'm not bailing Tatum out, but I'm also not going to say that, he's just, not invested.
I'm not
playing it.
The question is Tatum an alpha? You see the 50-point game and everyone's like, ooh, points, and it's great. 60s. Oh my God. When he catches fire, it's unreal. Is he an alpha? Is he the guy who leads you to a championship? You don't want to see you don't want to see entire series like this where if he goes 4 games laying an egg one after the other just because it's an uphill battle, that's not a great look. Okay. So you want to see him bounce back here and do something.
Yeah. This is something he's never faced before though. I'm not trying to cut him too much slack here, but I mean,
we get to see how the rest of the league looks against Brooklyn too.
Just look at his basketball career. I mean, we talked about facing adversity, and we talked about how this is pretty much the first year where people are like, okay, this is Tatum's team. That's the narrative now, and
it was a horrible year.
He's up against 3 Hall of Famers, and I just think he's almost trying to be the smarter player, whereas when he tries to be the aggressive player and he's not getting the calls, he's just chirping at the rep. He's a little bit out of his game, John, but I almost think he's trying to be a smarter player compared to trying to be someone who just goes 2 for 20 like he had before. He did that last year twice or something close to it.
What are we going to say?
Bad performance last year because he wasn't afraid to keep taking shots. I don't think that's part of his game. I don't think there's fear. I don't think that's it. I think he's just overwhelmed right now. It's like an nightmare.
I agree with that, Joe Sway. No, John, think of it like this.
He's never been on the wrong end of not even an AAU blowout. He's never been through this.
Well,
what if
you better get used to it.
Never mind Bobby? A Duke. He never,
What was the dude? What is this? Joe Sway? We're supposed to just sit here and he has to learn how to lose. No, what are we even talking about? These guys need to be killers. Now, that being said, see you, Bobby.
I mean,
doesn't
every killer have to learn how to lose? Which killer doesn't lose?
Yeah, but that being said, the only thing he has on his side right now is age. He has age on his side. He's very young. I don't know how many alphas there were in the history of the league at age 22. So I'm not saying that he's an alpha, but I'm also not saying that he doesn't have the ability to become one. I think both things can be true. We know that he's talented enough to be a number 1 player on a team. That's not breaking news, but it takes more than, I think just, those games that remind you how talented he is. He has to be able to consistently put that level of play together, and you have to be able to do it in the playoffs at the end of the day. That being said, nobody expected the Celtics to really do too much here against the Nets, but you want to see them compete, at the very least. So that goes back to what John was saying, that, you don't want to see a player turtle. And this is before the eye injury. This isn't saying, oh, he got poked in the eye and he left the game. This is saying, where was he even leading up to that? And, the way he was limited, whether it was his fault or whether it was credit to the Nets, him sucking is an automatic loss. And it's not just a loss, it's an automatic blowout.
Well, what I was going to say before I jumped out there is we have to see what Brooklyn ultimately becomes, because we have no clue right now. This could be the Warriors or something greater when we think about what this team is. And if they end up going 12-0 through the East, are we going to be that bummed about how Tatum looked here, how the Celtics looked here? It's going to be the Bucks, the Sixers, and everybody else.
What are we looking for here at the end of the day? What are you looking for out of this? Just some fight, right?
Yes.
It's that simple.
That's it.
So watching again, we talk about leadership works a couple different ways. Like not leading has not leading when you are the de facto leader or best player of a team has ripple effects. Okay. So watching Tatum shut it down isn't great for the rest of everybody. Watching the team not pass the ball, not move the ball around, not play defense, not get out on shooters, that's not great. Like the whole entire team just didn't really play today. They didn't really show up there. So it's incumbent at that moment for someone to say, I got it, like that. Those are the moments where you're looking for a little bit more,
It's that defense tonight for me, not getting back on the shooters
way
they did, and then not rotating the corners on Harris. That stretch there at the beginning of the first, you didn't even need a watch after that. That was the story of the game right there. 3 straight bad shots on the offensive end, a ridiculous smart turnover in the lane, and then just standing there as Harris ran out and took some practice shots.
Remember the thing I said last game where Smart, the one pass I do give him when he does get all smarty is because I think he senses no one's doing it right now. I think they kind of got that vibe really early tonight, you know, where like no one's stepping up, and that's when Marcus starts to get into the lane and get a little bit wild or shoot those pull-up threes or whatever. And, some went down for him in the second half there, and he ended up overall, he's clearly a bright spot tonight, but that's almost like my barometer. You know how they say like birds can sense things, like I think Marcus is like, this isn't right. We're not engaged right now. Like you could feel it early. You feel it really early.
Did he take too big of a step back this year?
Who?
Smart.
Well, yeah, we're just talking about tonight, like tonight's game.
Yeah. But what I'm looking at this year in terms of how they could have been better is maybe having Smart more involved on the ball as a playmaker. I know he was gone for a large stretch of the season, but he ultimately took that step back very early and said, we're going to cede this team to Tatum and Brown. And it didn't work all that great. And we still say this guy's the best passer on the team. Now, a year later, I still think that's the case.
He is, but he's also not out. The problem with Marcus is he really is outside of defense, offensively is always been the knock on him. He's a, jack of all trades, master of none. Like, sure, he's the best passer on this team, but he's not a natural, like he's not a great playmaker. He's pretty good. He's not outstanding. He's obviously not a great shooter, but sometimes you need him to shoot. You need the things that he gives you because they're deficient in those areas, but they didn't have a true playmaker. I mean, he's the best of what they have.
No, he took a step back. Tatum took a step forward, and you lost a lot in the playmaking department in the process. And you lost Hayward, that hurt them there, and they didn't really bring in a great backup point guard. They had Teague, and then he left, and there was nothing there really after that. So that was the most deficient area. That's going to be like what they have to solve, number one at the top of the list this year. And you just see in a game like this, when you don't have a guy setting the table on that end, they hit 2 or 3 shots to start this one. Well, they were kind of going back and forth, but then they just lost all control.
Well, what's their greatest need?
Passer.
A passer. I said that's what I think too, a playmaker. Well, where are you finding that?
Yeah.
It's hard. There's not a lot of specialists in that spot. Like the best players in the league are great passers. You have a couple good point guards here or there that that just is kind of their thing, and they might be weak in other areas like a Rondo, as we talk about.
Yeah, you're not bringing Rubio in here because he's terrible at everything except for passing. So like,
yeah, but what would this team look
You're
like?
not
going to
draft a guy at 16 that's like an elite passer. You know, you're not going to get somebody with that skill.
Lonzo.
Look, I keep going back to that. You know, I do that 100 times over if it's available.
Yeah, that would work. They need Alonzo in here. I just think what's frustrating sometimes is obviously seeing Tatum when he's just not fully engaged, but also because you know that he has that part of his game, right? When he's playmaking, like you look at both of those games, the 50-point game, the 60-point performance, like he was also playmaking. He was he was hooking guys up, you know, good looks in the paint, you know, finding guys when he was supposed to, finding it when, you know, coming out of the double team. Like, it's just unfortunate. I still think maybe we still see that performance, but I don't know. With this eye injury, I don't know with the team's morale, but I mean, game 3, TD Garden, full packed house. I can't help but think that you're gonna get their best effort, maybe for not 4 quarters, but for a bulk of that game. I hope.
Well, what would have helped tonight? That's the question, and that's the tough thing for the Celtics going forward. Is as long as the Nets are fully loaded in the East, and you have a couple other teams really on the rise here, those marginal pieces on the edges here that we talked about all year suddenly matter less and less, and that's ultimately why the Fournier addition didn't mean all that much in the end. Is because once you get up against Durant, Harden, and Kyrie, your passing and your fourth scoring option and that kind of thing just don't matter if they're on their game and doing what they want to do. What did Brad say coming into this one? We need to score 110. They pretty much did, and they still lost by 22. Just because when the Nets get going like they can, it doesn't matter what's on the other side. And that's going to be the challenge for the Celtics going forward. It's almost like no matter what they do, they might be doomed for the next 2 or 3 years if this Nets team keeps rolling.
I hate that. I hate that narrative. We've been battling We've been battling this for how long? Golden State's really good. Why even try? You'll never win a championship.
No, it's not a why even try thing. It's just that could be the result no matter what they try to do.
Every single year you field the best team you possibly can, and then you hope things fall in your direction, okay? They were this close to a championship, to getting to the finals last year, and nobody expected that to happen. You put your best players out there. You're building to win now. When you've got stars on your team, you're never saying we're out of it. You're telling me Tatum, Brown, surrounded by the right people, can't compete?
Plus,
of course,
those right people might be in the past.
All right, I got to tell everybody briefly that we're going to do this thing. I'm like nervous about locker room today. This is the angriest chat room we've had in a while. It's like you feel like I feel like if this were a club. If this were a club, there would have been 3 fights already. You know, like
they're opening up soon.
In the first,
a violent reopening.
Some people got in who don't normally. The bridge and tunnel crowd. You know, like some people kind of came into this one and they're looking for a little bit of trouble. It's an ornery crowd right now, but. Come hang out with us. Jeez, they're yelling at me. These are guys who have liked me in the past. Everyone's mad, but. Yeah, come on in, hang out, yell at us. That's fine. Brace yourself.
I'm not mad.
Brace yourself, John. Come to the locker room, yell at us, yell about the game, do whatever you want, but get there. Download the app, Android and iOS. Come on in, and we'll have at it.
You never know who's going to jump in. You never know. We had Perk on a couple of days ago.
We did have Perk.
Yeah. No, not yet.
Bobby's still picking up.
Who you going to take this time, John? Who you going to take? Come on.
For what?
For the locker room. You got to take one of us, no?
Who wants to come?
Oh.
Joe Sway's early. Wow. All right, we'll leave it for Jimmy, and let's do it.
Let's go.
Well, Bobby's at the game. Is he even going to be able to...
Yeah, you're gonna have to.
That means you can't friggin' play hide and seek with me.
Joe Sway.
Bobby? Or me. Jeez.
That's weird. That's pretty weird.
Yeah, that's not that. Yeah, no.
I missed it. Damn. Hey, Bobby. Speaking of, you still got this read, John, or what? We good?
No. So just come on in.
What do you got?
I do want to say the locker room, it's not just a thing we do after the game. We're sponsored by Locker Room. This is a big deal for us. So we do want you guys to hang out there, but we want to always have people hanging out there because we want to be able to do this.
That Perkins show was great the other night.
Perk
3
was
hours?
awesome.
You guys went 3 hours.
2 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guys, if you download it, Bobby gets to eat for the week. So if you don't, we don't know how he's getting back from Brooklyn. So
Bobby disappeared.
My Lord.
Bobby disappeared after Bobby went to the lane and threw up this little Grant Williams floater for Perk, and Perk just picked it out of the sky, put it about 15 rows
We've come
deep.
a long way. We've come a long way from our Cornet agreement.
And that was the last peep we heard from Bobby.
On that.
Bobby tried his Grant propaganda, his propaganda on.
We
Celtics.
Never even got to see the Grant play out tonight.
On Celtics blog today, he took the Celtics blog to do this Grant propaganda. And nobody didn't take.
All the way to Brooklyn, man. Damn.
Brad's not buying it. You think Brad's done with Grant?
I think he's been done with Grant, like most of the NBA. Like,
yeah,
guess so.
Guess so.
Stop trying to make Grant happy.
There goes another pick. I mean, if you can't use him in this series where he seemingly can fit in as a matchup, he's got to be gone next year. He's got to be gone.
I don't know. It's tough not to get that.
Bobby, is this your burner?
No. But Rob was a +1, so credit to Rob. He didn't even play well, and they still won his minutes. So that's probably the one thing you're going to come out of this series saying is that even against the best of the best here, the best team in the league talent-wise, Rob is still able to leave that kind of imprint, do some things on the offensive end, be that force in the middle. And you're seeing less and less mistakes now, too. And this is him at his injured form.
Injured. And again, Rob's got, really Rob's kryptonite is going to be Embiid.
Big centers.
Big centers who can dominate down low. It's not a matchup for him. It's difficult for him to defend them. But you're just going to have to eat those games. And instead of worrying about what he can't do, just focus on what he can. Win in the ways Rob Williams allows you to win, even in those games against Embiid, okay? But, yeah, those are always going to be hard for him. You can't measure him based on that. What he does in every other circumstance is makes the team better. They're always better with him on the floor. Almost always better with him on the floor. And it'd be different if the guy, like I said, is if you had Aaron Baines 2 years ago, you might make a case like Baines got to play 25 minutes against Embiid because it's really going to be ugly. And those are the games where you could live with it, but you don't have anything that much better behind it. So there's really in a series like this, it makes no sense.
Bobby, what was the scene over there tonight?
I got to give the Nets fans some credit. They were unloading on the Celtics, and it was a great amount of people in here. I think about 13,000.
Get out of here.
No, they showed up late. I was here about 7:15.
No, they have a fan section. They all get free. They get free season tickets.
Yeah. Well, wait a second. Didn't they need to sell tickets for 50% off or like to fill the place? Didn't like Harden like cover the other half or something like that?
Harden pulled out his wallet.
Hey,
I mean, there were some celebrity sightings in here, but again, that Boston sucks chant was just brutal if you're the Celtics. And I heard you guys talking before coming in about whether or not there was like jersey swapping or hugging and kissing going on. The Celtics walked right off the court. There was like still time on the clock, and they all stormed right out of here. Obviously, Tatum left early with that injury, but no, there weren't even handshakes after this one.
All right, so Bobby, you do realize there's no such thing as a Nets fan, right?
Yeah.
Well, whatever you want to call the people in the seats tonight.
Yeah.
They're all just actors. Hey, was that thing okay? Am I the only one who didn't know this? The sun shines right into the players' faces as they're playing. Did you guys see that at the beginning of the game? Did you see that on the broadcast? So, like in the beginning of the broadcast, first quarter, that like on TNT, they show like the sun shining through like an opening in the like obviously a window in the arena, like that's shining in the Celtics way that they were shooting, and like it just
I know what you're talking about, but it looked like they covered it, and it's very dark in here. Like it is. If I didn't have this light on me, I'd be in pitch darkness right now. I don't love this.
Yeah, but it's cool, Bobby. It's cool.
No, it's not cool.
Yeah,
it's kind of eerie. It's kind of eerie, and John probably knows this. The Islanders were here, and they had to like leave because the seats were just so disastrous. It's a weird setup.
It's dark.
I had to fight.
Really
I had to
dark.
fight fans. I had to fight fans to get my food too. There was no like media food here. I'm just kind of up in the stands. So they gave us like a voucher for food, and at halftime I had to go like swing through the Irving jerseys and Durant people.
Were those hipsters terrifying, Bobby, or were you able to get your
I got my
to get a jar of artisan pickles or whatever you eat there.
Yeah.
And an IPA.
Exactly.
Oh, I was dying for that Brooklyn lager.
Just represent gentrification over there in Brooklyn.
After that first quarter, I was dying for that Brooklyn lager, but didn't get it.
Oh yeah, they definitely have that Brooklyn lager.
Thank
what
you
else?
for
They
staying
have
sober.
like a Brooklyn whiskey, like some sort of like homemade stuff.
No, they had the Brooklyn. Yeah, they did. I do love that court though. That court is incredible. The jerseys they have, I love all that stuff. But you're right, like the fan base, just the authentic fan base still isn't there. The energy that you saw at the Knicks game the other day. How great was that Knicks game? And what you
how
were
great were the
on
turkey
TV?
burgers? Yeah,
I didn't get a turkey burger. I wish I did.
The Knicks I mean,
That was electric.
That's great. But like I said,
the turkey burger.
I've always said this: the world is a better place. The NBA is a better place when you have, East Coast basketball thriving. When you've got the Knicks, Philadelphia, Boston. Obviously, the Celtics suck this year, but those teams cranking awesome energy. The energy's freaking unreal. Brooklyn, whatever. I mean,
the Knicks lead the way. I mean, think about
it. But the Knicks are unreal. I mean, it's so crazy they've been this bad for this long.
Who do you think the most popular basketball player is in New York City right now? Who do you think the most popular basketball player in New York City is?
You're saying it's Julius ahead of these three?
Julius Randle.
I think it's Julius or Derrick Rose. I'd put them both over those three bums right now in Brooklyn. Not bums because they're bad, just bums because nobody really cares. If Brooklyn was eliminated, the only people that would really care would be like, a handful of Brooklyn fans and like NBA. Maybe like diehard NBA fans who just want to see great players play, but
you got like the Jersey crew, like
people who.
I feel like they've lost the Jersey crew though, which is they're in like this limbo.
No, I'm saying
the Jersey people are mad they left. The Knicks people are never going to embrace them. So
no, I'm
like
saying people who are fans of jerseys, not fans of teams.
Oh, okay.
I'm a Durant guy. I'm a Harden guy. Those types of fans.
Exactly.
You have those still. Yeah.
Bobby thought you meant like New Jersey because that's where they came from.
I thought you meant Texas.
But no, I think you're right. I think that it's when the Knicks are doing their. And just think about Linsanity. I mean, remember that crazy time? And that was like everyone in New York City is like dying for a fun basketball team. And you always said, well, why don't any of these star players want to go to New York City? Whether it's they just, didn't think they could handle it, or whether it's because of James Dolan, most likely. That was a huge part of it. But you can see what happens when you put a good product out there. The fans come in flocks to cheer on the Knicks, and it's fun. It's fun to see. And when you're in Brooklyn, you're just kind of there. You're second.
Would have been more if the Celtics could have had a better regular season. That Knicks Celtics like 4-5 there would have been really fun. Especially if it was Game 1 Celtics Knicks in New York City like it was this weekend. That would have been great. But again, this team just didn't have that urgency in the regular season to get a seed to even set themselves up in a matchup where they, even at their current form, could have probably competed in. The Sevens, they were never going to be able to do anything in this series, healthy or not. And that is just like such a shame. Given like all the stuff we talked about during the regular season and everything Tristan Thompson was saying, like this is ending up in this situation is why seeding is important. They took it to the next level though, falling this far.
Again, when you focus that much on seeding, you're just not a good team anyway. So you're just trying to find ways to lose. Like you're trying to find ways to not lose as soon as you will lose. Like who cares?
Like the path they had last year.
Mm-hmm. Last year they were good. Nobody was saying, "Oh, they need to finish in this seed or that seed." People were just saying, "Wow, look how good they're playing." This year it was like, "Oh, well, they really need that, that 4th, 5th, or 6th seed." And then it was like, "Oh, you got to avoid this 7th seed because you don't want the Nets. You should try to lose, and then."
No, it's not about that. It's just about being better. Yeah, because if you're better, you're gonna verse a team in the middle rather than one of those teams at the top. This is what I say about the Lakers too, because everyone's still talking about them as a finals team. Teams just don't go to the finals from a 7 seed. I don't even care if you're the Lakers, and they obviously went on last game 1 of the Suns, and I think they might lose that series.
I'm so shocked that they're still the betting favorites.
Situation. Yeah. It's a completely different situation, and 7 seeds do win.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Yes, it is, because you're talking about arguably the best player in the history of the NBA being on that 7 seed.
But they kind of are who they are this year.
Large portion of
and they are, but they're also great.
They're also tied with the team that they're tied with the team that finished 5th. So I mean, they're not like a low 7.
Not
you know,
that simple. Every 7 seed is like there's different situations. And yeah, I mean, is it less likely historically? Absolutely. But you're going to sit here and tell me that this Lakers team is a typical 7 seed with arguably 2 of the best 5 players in the NBA
they're not typical, but the situation that set them up to be there still exists.
I don't care that they're 7. I care at this moment in time, they're still their best players aren't healthy, so they're probably not going to win. Like that's the thing. Like AD looks.
Who's surprised if they beat the Suns? Who's really?
I would be, because it looks like LeBron
surprised.
Can't jump right now, so they just don't. They don't look.
When I saw them against Golden State, I said, because that's when they should have turned it on if they were going to do it, and they almost lost.
They don't look right.
They came back and won.
100% healthy, I wouldn't care that they were a 7 seed. They just don't look right to me.
Yeah, they definitely don't look right. But I still think they're better than most 7 seeds in the history of the NBA.
There are, but there are actually good teams out there. If it was a weak conference, you could still say it. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
These Celtics are probably a little better than a 7 seed too.
Someone said he just jumped 12 feet in the air for an alley-oop 10 minutes ago, so maybe he's better.
He's got 10 points so far.
How'd you feel about the Lakers compared to last year, though? I feel like last year they were much more scarier, and I feel like Rondo had a lot to do with that.
I thought they upgraded. Guys, we're forgetting how they started the season. I thought they upgraded their roster this offseason. And we debated it, and then the first 20 games, everyone was like, yeah, they're better. You know, like they looked unstoppable.
Yeah, but they had role guys that fit really well with what they were doing last year. They brought in better players, but it's do they fit in the spots where they need guys to do certain things. And that gets thrown into a flux when your best players get hurt too. I think Schroeder's really been thrown into a tough spot since LeBron's been hampered and stuff.
They upgraded their roster.
It's better players. It's better players. But now that LeBron's hampered and some of these other guys got to step up into bigger roles like Harrell on the offensive end, and that Drummond thing, how glad are we that Drummond didn't end up on the Celtics, seeing what he's looked like out there? He is just a slog out there on the court. Yeah, but again, the minutes that would have been forced his way, and even less Rob, as we talk about here, and now still seeing what Tristan has to be fed in that sense, that would have been frustrating as all hell, and it wouldn't have gotten them anything in terms of like upside there. They wouldn't have helped them at all, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it wouldn't have been a big difference at all. We're still talking about them losing to the Nets.
Is there anything left they can do? Play Rob, push Rob 40 minutes through the toe? Is that the adjustment here?
Nothing they're going to be able to do is going to make this a series. I originally thought they might be able to steal a game, but I
never did. Real quick on Tatum, just a couple of updates from the locker room. Brad said he was trying to adjust to the lights. It was scratched and swollen.
Oh, was the sun in his eyes too?
Sun got his eyes.
There it is.
He just says he couldn't focus there and was uncomfortable and swollen. Marcus Smart after the game said, I talked to him. I think he's in pretty good spirits. I expect him to be out there in game 3. So Dr. Smart thinks he'll be out there.
Good spirits.
Yeah. Dr. Smart thinks he'll be out there.
Well, I'm glad that he's in good spirits after that.
How about
that loss?
Kyrie talking about playing in Boston.
No.
What did he say? I've been on this show, so
I'm telling you, I don't know. Either way, we're gonna get a close game on for game 3.
You think so?
I think so.
Yeah.
I hope they don't pack it in. I mean, they'll give it one more shot at 3-0. They would probably pack it in.
Technically, it's a close game.
I don't know. We'll see. Anything you saw tonight, what does it matter? If they win one game, you feel better about it. I mean,
Well, we actually had stuff we said was good out of game one, like stuff that you could carry in the next season. Guys stepping up in certain spots. Like I thought Neesmith looked so good in game one. Rob obviously was historic. You had nice contributions on the outskirts. And just young guys doing some decent things there. That's what you want to see in this series beyond the compete is some young guys stepping in the spots and doing some things. But Pritchard, I know he didn't get a lot more minutes in this one, but when he did get in there early, he looked terrible. And he wasn't warranted of getting more in that spot. And that's the kind of stuff out of this series that makes it even tougher because you're not even like, remember when we were debating lottery versus playoffs, you said, oh, maybe the young guys could get some experience here and, make some strides at the playoff pace and all that kind of stuff. You're not even getting that out of this series. And then we're back to that spot where it's like, should they have just lost in the play and gotten that pick?
Look, to me, there's only one thing. I mean, you call it 1A. If you feel better about Fournier after watching him, and you think that he's worth the money, fine. Maybe that's a little showcase. I don't know that anything he does here necessarily guarantees he comes back. There's one thing you're looking at here, watching these games, or watching certainly game one and even a little bit of game two. It's the confidence in Rob Williams to be more than tantalizing, more than a role player, more than a tease. Rob Williams being a legitimate core piece that actually separates you from other teams and is a talent that other teams, a talent in a place that other teams can't match. That's potentially the only good thing that's going to come out of this series and this season. And nothing else. I mean, Pritchard, Neesmith, fine. Slight ticks up, great. If there are more than role players in the NBA, I'll be surprised, I'll be pleased, but at least they're not the draft class from the year before. Those are fine. I'm not discounting them altogether, but there's one big thing that you're looking at here, and it's Rob Williams might be real. And if Rob Williams is real, or Rob Williams comes back and puts health stuff behind him and comes back physically in a better place, he might be a legitimate thing for you, a legitimate thing that you can count on that actually separates you from other teams. And now you start to think they're closer. You got Tatum, Brown, and Williams. Like you're not going to put him in that category with those guys yet, but you want to count him among your like legitimate assets moving forward. So that's the only positive I'm taking out of anything with the whole year, honestly.
That's pretty much, yeah. I was gonna say that's your only positive for the entire year.
For the whole year.
You've been pushing that. You've been campaigning that. Like this is the only.
I have, but not just because I want
to.
Not just because I want to will it into existence. I wanted to see Romeo. I wanted to see Neesmith. We saw what we saw. Okay, you feel okay about Neesmith, Romeo. You're giving him one more shot next year. But right now, there's no reason to feel confident in anything regarding him. Rob Williams is real, and he could be. It could be something that alone could take you up a level, a full year of that.
You were winning the minutes in both game one and game two of this series that he played. Realistically, if he could somehow stretch 48 in a game, the Celtics might be up 2-0 in this series, which is amazing to think about. Like the impact is that great from him, even in a game like this where I thought he did not play well at all tonight. Yeah. He still churned out positive minutes. And that is just so encouraging, because this is the peak of competition. This is the ultimate test for him. And this is kind of a tough matchup for him. He has to go and guard Durant. He has to go and guard Harden on the perimeter. And he's done an okay job. He has affected Joe Harris's 3-point shots at points in this series. He has just put on a masterful showing of what his potential can be, and it's worth getting excited about, and it's worth investing in. Like they have to find a way to make sure he can play heavier minutes next year and be more involved and dedicated to from the coaching staff's perspective. And I don't know if that's going to involve moving on from Thompson this offseason and really positioning Rob in that spot with some backups like Robin Lopez behind him that aren't going to supplant him, or really just making it clear this offseason that Rob's the future and everybody else is going to have to take a back seat here.
Yeah. All right. Well, I put this thing up here. If we can throw this in the chat here, locker room is open. So you guys want to migrate over. Josue and I are going to head over first. Bobby and Jimmy are going to wrap this one up, and they're going to come over and hang out with us, hang out after. Have
fun, boys.
Yeah, have fun. Don't spend too long. Yeah, we're going to do this thing.
Got some Kyrie post. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
we got you.
Actually, hey, hold on. I got to change my headphones real quick.
My phone's going nuts right now with this.
You got the quote, John?
Yeah. I don't have the clip, but Kyrie was asking, about getting jeered in Boston. And
hopefully it won't be racist, right?
And the exact quote was this. I'll tell you right now. Exact quote. It's not my first time being an opponent in Boston, so I'm just looking forward to competing with my teammates, and hopefully we can just keep it strictly basketball. There's no belligerence or any racism going on. Subtle racism and people yelling shit from the crowd. But even if it is, that's just the nature of the game, and we're going to focus what we can control. Follow-up question, is it something you've experienced in Boston before?
Exactly what I would have asked.
I'm not the only one that can attest to this, and then he kind of laughed about it. It is what it is. So Kyrie put that out there as a preemptive thing about his experience coming to Boston here. Jimmy's waving as Jimmy disappeared.
To me, it sounds more like, I don't know. It sounds more like I've heard the stories. You've all heard the stories.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like let's
right. Whether it happened to me or not, like let's keep it. Which is okay.
Let's keep it real. Right.
Let's keep it real. Okay.
That's what I mean. Okay. He put it out there ahead of time. That's what I mean by preemptive.
Yeah. Remember that thing that happened with DeMarcus Cousins? He was on the Celtics when that happened. Yep. So I think that's what he meant. I don't think he meant it as like I've been through this personally.
I don't know. He said he's been there as an opponent before, so it might be that he's gone through it personally as well, or he's heard stories, or he's been part of it, or his teammates have gone through it, or he's heard other players talking, or he's heard it here, and as a Celtic, thrown at other people. What's interesting, and you mentioned it before, like the Red Sox center field problem, and there was issues there, and like people were hearing in the outfield. Mookie knew it was going on too, and Mookie was also patrolling center field. It just wasn't being necessarily directed at him, but he was also aware of it.
Adam Jones,
the Adam Jones thing, but beyond, and wasn't the only person. So whether Kyrie was aware of stuff like that being here or not here, he's obviously putting it out there right now. So that's going to be a big storyline heading into the game, because
he wants that to be the narrative now.
How did I see that coming?
Be the story. So that's what he wants to push going into this game. Then okay.
Yeah, but I mean, look, it is what it is. But now it does change the dynamic.
So there's going to be 99.9% of fans like keeping it basketball and getting into them for what leaving the team and saying you want to stay here and you didn't. But there's going to be one idiot or two, like there is in every arena, in every state, in every city, and that's what they're gonna
but it's not even that. I'm sure he's alluding to the undertones of the Sage criticism and all that stuff too that we talked about, like just crazy Kyrie being crazy Kyrie. Because honestly, if we look at Kyrie as a person since he's left the Celtics, beyond like the brilliance that he's displayed on the court in Brooklyn to this point, like we've seen him shift his focus toward like real stuff and trying to impact, and whether it's been straightforward or whether his words match his action, he's done a lot of great things at this point to where like you really can't go at him as a person. You might be mad that he left Boston, you might be mad that he did the Celtics the way he did, but sometimes the criticism goes beyond that to crazy Kyrie, like they take it further to who he is as a person, and some of that he brought on himself with the flat earth stuff, but that was a long time ago at this point.
He brings a lot of stuff on himself, but I mean that's separate from what he's talking about here. Calling Kyrie a flat earther and other sort of things like that, he brings a lot of criticism on himself because he's dramatic and he's kind of weird, and he says stuff that's polarizing and it rubs people the wrong way. But
I think the biggest criticism was, at least for me, was the way that the team sort of went when he was leading the way. I mean, it felt like Kyrie versus like the young kids. Like it was like he would say something to the media, and then like Jaylen Brown would say something, and it was almost like, what are we even talking about? Like, what are all these, what does this mean? It felt like Kyrie wasn't really getting along, or wasn't, felt like he checked out a little bit. So I mean, I think that's what a lot of people.
Him quitting on the Celtics is one thing. Him saying the Earth is flat and thinking that it's because he's thinking of it more deeply than other people. Whatever, you can criticize whatever. I don't give a shit. Like, I honestly, I find that stuff boring. On that stuff with Kyrie, I find those conversations boring. It's fine. It is. It was him talking in circles when he was here, trying to say, I don't want it to be about me, but constantly making it about himself. That was his issue here, was I just want to be about basketball. I don't want it to be about me, but here I am going to throw my teammates under the bus and make it about me. And then it just forced another cycle. And it just kind of kept going with him with that stuff. So anyway, I just want to tell people before we move on.
I feel like he's stating the obvious. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, we're like, thanks. Okay, right.
And to bring it back to what we're talking about here, whether you think it's self-serving or not, it is a real issue and a real thing that's gone on in Boston. So you can't deny that. So like whatever you think his motive is behind it, he's still pointing, light towards something that's going on in a real issue here. So like ultimately, I think something good comes of that at the end of the day, because like John said, this stuff has happened.
It's happened in the Garden. There's precedent. It's happened at Fenway. It's happened at the Garden. It's happened.
Yeah,
it's happened. Yeah. It's happened. It happens. And so he's not just saying it. It's happened. So let's move on real quick. Just to let people know, again, we're heading to locker room. So come on over. Josue and I gonna go hang out. And we're going to chat basketball, whatever you guys want to talk about, end of the season stuff about this game. We want to hear all of your takes. So, yes, it is open. Sorry. I know, guys, we've had it open for a little bit. We apologize if you've been in there waiting for us. We are going to head over there. This guy's some really ornery. I think some Philly people infiltrated our chat too. That's one of the reasons it got nasty.
Oh boy.
So just way in our head.
Oh boy, when it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
Everyone's watching.
I can't wait for this locker room.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. All right, guys, we're heading out. Josue, take off. We'll see you guys in a bit. Jimmy and Bobby follow us in there. All right. All right.
Jimmy and I are gonna try our best to preview Game 3 of the series. Is there any hope left? Is there anything they can do? Jimmy, I worked so hard the last couple of days to find something. You saw me up on the roof there talking. You read me in Celtics blog, like just looking for that adjustment. And I found a couple things. I saw a couple bits of hope, and it, like, before they could even try it, this game felt like it was over before they could even put in Peyton Pritchard or Grant Williams or some of the things that I mentioned. Like that first rotation Brooklyn throw at them was just so devastating that they were down. What were they down? 40-28 at that point or something like that?
It was right up there. After that, like, it was an 18-0 run that they went on. Like, and, they brought Robin in the, midst of it. But at that point, like, it was a good 15, 16 point lead, with a few minutes left in the first quarter. And yeah, I mean, almost didn't feel like you even had a chance for adjustments. But when Harris is going off and he's the guy that's, lighting it up, it's tough because you're kind of knowing that if that's the case, you're screwed, because he's a very talented player and that's why he got paid and all that stuff. But you're banking on the big three on that team to be doing the bulk of the scoring. And that's what happened in Game 1. They scored, I think, like 95% of their points or whatever it was.
Yeah, they were taking most of their shots too. And I was almost looking at them after that game saying, like, all right, are these three guys going to be so focused on figuring it out that they don't even try to integrate other guys? And I think Jeff Green got asked that yesterday. Like, are you guys worried about the fact that you're not really getting the ball right now? And he just kind of laughed it off and was like, no. And then you saw when the Celtics were rotating off Harris in those early minutes to throw some doubles and other things, he was just getting wide open look after wide open look. And I don't want to act like an expert on that. Like, maybe that was the right point of attack for the Celtics to kind of send another guy at Durant in rotation there if he was going to try to drive into the lane, and maybe would have got Harris open out of that anyway. But it felt crazy to me that they were rotating off the best shooter in the NBA to bring some help on Harden, Durant, and others. I mean, he was wide open.
But some of that was transition too. It was like,
yes,
he was like telling, these guys are getting back, and whether it's Thompson, like, because he was trailing because he was just, going up for it under the hoop, or whether it was Smart. It felt like I saw on one occasion where he was kind of late getting back on defense, and that's how the Nets got out to that lead is, Celtics misses out in transition, whipping the ball around. And when you have a shooter like that in Harris, like, that's it. I mean, the Celtics just don't, I mean, at some point it comes down to a numbers game in terms of, they just have that many, those options are available to them. Whereas like on the Celtics, after Tatum and Kemba, there's not a lot of players who can just kind of go off that quickly. Yeah, Smart can get really hot, but more often than not, he's, missing, shots like that. And we've seen Fournier rarely, he can be that guy that can, get hot from outside. But, the Nets can just keep coming with talent at the end of the day. And that's why it's not a surprise that they're up 2-0. I think most people probably thought that, I would imagine the vast majority of people thought that they would go up 2-0 in this series. But for me, it was just kind of the way the Celtics went down, not swinging. In that first quarter there, it was already over. There wasn't really a point where you were like, okay, I can kind of see this turning around in some way. And when you lose that sort of hope, it's just kind of, like I said, you're kind of watching the game just kind of numb. You're not even really upset because you've seen this so many times this season. And yeah, I mean, to answer your question, Game 3, I think it'll be more fun. I think there'll be a lot of energy. I think the fans will be loud. They might be loud against Brooklyn to start, and they might be loud against the Celtics, by the end of it.
That's where this could get really ugly, because we've seen a couple moments this year, San Antonio, Miami, where they have unloaded on the Celtics going into halftime. And if this same game played out the way it did tonight in Boston with the full house, the 13,000 or whatever it's going to be, that would be probably unlike anything we've seen covering the Celtics in terms of just the vitriol against this team. And, there's a lot of built up angst. Some people hold it back to 2018, the Game 7 that they lost. Some people hold it back to 2019. It feels like people are mad at this team about a lot of different things. Last year still. When it comes to this series and what John was saying at the beginning of the show, like, what does this say about Tatum? What does this say about the Celtics here? They are just so overmatched. What did everyone say coming into this series? Sweep. I think if you asked all four of us coming into this, it was Nets in 4. So to suddenly see that playing out in front of us, like what we expected to see here, I don't think it's shocking, but no one should be surprised. You do want to see them fight a little bit, but
well, that was what we said.
Like ultimately, if the Nets get rolling like this in a game, that wasn't that stunning to me.
No, definitely not. I mean, because it comes down to talent. The NBA, more than any other sport to me, always comes down to the players that are playing the game, the talent that's out there. Offense beats defense all the time, in my opinion. In basketball, I think
the only way you could have prevented tonight was by trading for Harden.
And that's the one thing I think that we said before the trade was made, whereas you're almost making the trade to play some defense.
Yes.
Not defense on the court necessarily, but defense, preventing the Nets from getting him. Now, who knows how that would have played out? I don't know what the Celtics, how close they were, if they,
We've talked a lot about the Miles Turner. We've talked a lot about the Miles Turner thing this year, and rightfully so. I feel like we haven't talked enough about that what if of Harden, because Goodman and us have started throwing around Brown trades, and we'll discuss in the offseason like what they could get for certain guys. At this point, when you look at what's going to be available going forward, and you think about what's been available for the Celtics stars, it would have been hard to beat. I don't know what else they would have had to throw in there. Maybe multiple picks. Maybe that's where they got a little scared and hung up about that. But Brown for Harden on the surface, now that you look back on it and what it would have meant for Boston and what it would have meant for Brooklyn, still kind of hanging in the middle of that East there. If the Celtics transform their roster by getting Turner, and even not getting Turner, but flipping Brown for Harden, I think a lot of people can imagine a much different team this year, because that passer that we talk about, that's who Harden is. He's one of the best passers in the NBA. He would have been able to get Tatum the ball. He would have probably been able to help out some of these young guys. And it stinks because I love Jaylen. I love where Jaylen's going, but Jaylen isn't necessarily the solution to the problems that they have right now.
No, and it's a great point because you talk about, what are the Celtics missing? We talked about earlier in the show, a playmaker, right?
Yeah.
Harden kind of came in there and unlocked. Kyrie's able to do way more off the ball. We already know what Durant's capable of, and Harden's, before he went down with an injury, he was putting up MVP argument to some extent. The way they were playing with him, sort of manning the position there, being a bit of a quarterback out there. So certainly, and I think so many people who maybe don't watch Harden as much, outside of the highlights, they think that, he holds on to the ball forever, takes a 3-year drive to the hoop, gets foul, goes to the line. They don't really maybe understand how good of a playmaker that he really was until maybe they saw more of him, on this Brooklyn team.
That's the thing, because we were all on the show saying no way, and it's so crazy to think about now.
Right.
But when you remember what was going on then, it was what he was in Houston, added on with the fat suit, added on with how he was acting around the team, and just how angry his team. Do you remember how mad John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins and those guys were at him? And imagining bringing that into the Celtics situation with like how good Brown and Tatum were looking. And remember, Brown was like the number one scoring guy in the NBA to start this year. It was just such a different time that you almost wouldn't have even imagined doing that at that time. But you kind of had to take the blinders off to what was going on then and look at what you had. And I almost wonder if the Kyrie trade and how that went dissuaded Ainge from doing a similar trade for Harden, because it was almost the same kind of situation. A disgruntled guy who definitely wanted to come to Boston, but it wasn't his first choice, and you're giving up a lot for him, and he could leave in a couple of years. And then at that point, you siphon one more asset and a very great player for what could ultimately just become a wash of 2 years. So I get why they didn't do it. Now looking back on how it went, all things being equal, it could have saved the team this year.
I think it would have been completely different situations for sure on the Celtics and on the Nets. That's one less, stud player that they have. I think, Danny had a lot more to think about when it comes to trading, Brown in this case, because I think that he, when it comes down to, Kyrie Irving for Isaiah Thomas, looking back, wow, that kind of maybe backfired a little bit. But Isaiah Thomas was hurt. We know how his career's kind of been since that trade, and I know everyone, all Celtics fans love Isaiah Thomas, but I think that was kind of a no-brainer on his end. Whereas this was like you're really parting with a player in Jaylen Brown that could be all-star for years to come, could be a centerpiece of this team. So there was more to think about, but I think there's a lot more. Put it this way, I think there's a lot more people today who would make that trade than there were when it was being floated around.
100%. And even with how much people love Brown, and I know we have a lot of Brown.
Had a good season too. Brown had a great season,
Yeah. But we all know that even if Brown was
hard, I mean, Jayson Tatum said it himself. Harden's a top five player in the NBA. He just said it, on a podcast this week. So that should tell you right there what he thinks about playing with a guy like Harden.
Harden was an MVP candidate when he was rolling midway through this year. Even on the team he was on, like with all the talent around him, he was going to get a serious look at that before he got hurt. And he's going to continue to thrive in that environment going forward. And your point was so right, Jimmy. This is true for Philly, too. If Philly ends up getting mowed over by Brooklyn in these finals or whenever they'll meet, that defense factor, keeping him away from Brooklyn, not allowing them to do that. And the fact that Brooklyn got him for so little, a couple role players, good role players, guys that they miss, seven picks that they don't give a damn about, but they have this great core and still a ton of great role players around them. Why didn't Houston ask for Joe Harris?
It's a great player. I don't know. Maybe they didn't think Harris was a guy that they could build around. I don't know if Houston's the team that we should be trying to build, follow their lead when it comes to building a team. I think they're going to be in the dumps for a while over there. But yeah, I mean that trade certainly would have completely, if it goes to Boston or I know Philly was a real popular landing spot. It just changes everything in the East, and it makes Brooklyn more human, right? I mean, because right now we're talking about, as long as Brooklyn stays healthy, like it's hard to envision a team beating them, especially out in the East, anyways. So, you take that away immediately, and the playing field is much more level. So, and I mean, Harden in Boston. I mean, you can't tell me that wouldn't be an electric factory. Fans wouldn't be able to get behind him.
Fans would have fallen in love game number 1 when he scored 50 points.
Harden and
it wouldn't have taken long.
Going back and forth like that. I mean, that'd be.
And that's where you look at Ainge again. Ainge has to be the guy to look beyond the fans and the idiots like me and the people who are hyping up Brown to that level and say, this is James Harden we're talking about here. Let's get this done. And it's almost amazing that he didn't do it. And that says to me that the price was even higher than Brown. It had to be like Brown and 3 first and Rob or something like that. Just an astronomical asking price, I'd imagine. Because again, why didn't Houston do Harden for Simmons? I think it's because Brooklyn was willing to do 7 first, and they were just obsessed with getting those picks, even though who knows what picks could end up becoming.
That's the risk, and you have a choice where if you really think one of those 7 picks or whatever they are going to be better than a Jaylen Brown someday, and that maybe you're not ready to have, maybe you don't think that a Jaylen Brown is going to be enough to really do a whole lot for you, and he might be a guy that walks in a few years, and if you don't trade him before he walks, then you kind of, you're the centerpiece of your trade, says see you later. So I don't know how much that played into it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if Danny Ainge had a legitimate chance at Harden and, said thanks but no thanks, or didn't think that he was winning the deal and for some reason, then
remember Harden, Boston was
that was the case.
Boston was on Harden's list. That we know for certain. And who knows if that means he would have stayed beyond the 2 years, but he would have been fine going there at this moment.
And you know what? The 2 years in Boston, those are 2 years where you are a NBA Finals contender. So you take that, right? Anytime you can put yourself in an NBA Finals contention, you do it. I mean, I don't know if anyone who follows the Celtics thinks that, they're a Finals contender next season based on, a roster that looks very similar to this one. And part of the reason is because Brooklyn will have, their guys coming back, and, Philly's playing a lot better than they were playing last season. So again, now you're trying to find another avenue to put yourself.
And now you got the Knicks on the rise, and then you got the Hawks.
I mean, you've got a lot of teams that are getting better. My Pacers, who knows?
No, I mean, even without the Pacers, you could legitimately have, in terms of trajectory, 6 teams moving ahead of Boston at that spot. And
maybe be better too. Who knows?
And even if Brown and Tatum keep growing, those other teams are going to keep growing too. Trae Young and Julius Randle in that group there, and they're going to probably get another guy at some point here. And who knows how the drafts go in coming years? I mean, this, it's tough to say at this point, but this really could be we could have seen Boston's best chance to win a championship come and go within the last 2 or 3 years. And there might not be that opportunity again in this Brown and Tatum stint here, which is the darkest, scariest path that you could go down here in terms of what the next 2-3 years are going to look like. But no, it's possible. You have to at least acknowledge that it's possible, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, sure. It's certainly possible. I think they absolutely need, more talent, and we'll see. We'll have many off-season shows, but I think John wants us to wrap it up here.
Yeah, we are gonna wrap it up and head over to locker room. So bring your Harden takes, respond to what I just said if you would like, and give us some adjustments, please, because I'm all out. I'm not gonna. There's gonna be no rooftop video tomorrow of me with another solution in this series. I think it is over. So. Just a couple more games. We're back on Friday for Game 3, and then Sunday is Game 4, and that might be it for this season if this keeps going like it is. So I'm going to give John the wave right now. I don't know if he sees this here, but we are out to locker room, and we will see you on Friday night.
See you guys.